All right, welcome to this new episode about Voices of Change, the thought-provoking dialogues with education leaders in new education paradigms that Luther Lead and myself, David Caballero, host at Evolving Education. Today, we're responding to a call for ideas about how to engage communities, particularly in vulnerable settings. And we are bringing you a full team of really experienced people with close to 10 years of experience building self-directed learning centers all around the world. And the team of Project DEFY, and the spaces that they call are called Nooks, and we're going to be talking a lot about them, how they work, how they engage the communities. DEFY has been selected by the international organization 100 for 5 years in a row as one of the most impactful and scalable education innovations in the world. So welcome, all of you.
Yeah, we are really excited to have you with us. And I think just to give a little bit of context, when we ask about successful models in self-directed learning, like the common sense answers that come to our mind is like Sudbury models or Agile Learning Centers, as if there wasn't anything else going on around the world. And I think that there is a little bit of Western bias that goes a little bit unnoticed. So if you don't know about Project DEFY, which is Design Education for Yourself, then you don't know about one of the SDL models that serves more than 4,000 youth in more than 30 countries around the world, in India and Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, and probably more places that I don't know. And we are really amazed by the huge potential for critical thinking and social resilience that they are creating in the communities they work on. Not just that, but also the approach to spreading the community the empowerment is fully collaborative. Most Nooks or learning centers are run in collaboration with the local partners, and they are free for the learners. So thank you very much, Abjit, Manavi, Boicha, Anushka, and Nishan for joining us today, and for the multiple collaboration points that we have had along the years. And if you could start maybe a little bit to introduce yourself, telling us where are you joining us from and what's your role at DEFY, would be amazing. Maybe Abjit, let's go.
Okay, we go alphabetical. Mm,
For
yeah.
example.
All right. Well, I'm Abhijit, or for most people, it is usually Abhi, and I am in Bangalore. I started Defy now almost 10 years ago, mostly as an accident as opposed to an intention, and I don't think I ever wanted to start a non-profit, and I think that after creating a non-profit, I also don't want to start another one. But it is quite a serendipitous journey that is just discovering itself. Of course, I'll talk a lot more about it, but yeah, very nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us.
I think I'm next, alphabetically. So, hello everyone. It's really nice to be here. Thank you, David and Louis, for having us. My name is Anushka. I am currently in Delhi, which is the capital of India, and I'm at DEFY. I look at the research aspects of our work, which basically means that to understand how this self-designed learning or self-directed learning is actually making a difference in the lives of the learners and the communities across geographies. So I try to look at that. We do a lot of collaborative studies with the learners across contexts, and try to really hear from them what the impact has been on their lives. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half now, a little bit more than that, and we've had some really nice studies come out. The most recent, the one that's going to be next is actually a study from Rwanda. So we're super excited about that, and it'll be out in about a week or 10 days. So this is like a little bit of PR for that as well. Thank you.
I think we are going alphabetically, so I think it's me. Yeah, it's lovely to meet you, Luis and David. I think, yeah, my name is Boisha. I also live in Bangalore. Yeah, and in DeFi, yeah, I've been with DeFi for 5 years, I think. Yeah, who's I can flex, I think, sometimes. Yeah, but it's a really good experience, and have been a wonderful journey for me personally, not only professionally, also been. So in DeFi, I do program design, and then also I think we'll talk more in details also later on. And I also go around and work with different communities and set up the learning space that we call Nook also. So yeah, because of that, able to travel a lot, able to experience new culture, new place, new locations. So it's been a wonderful journey for me, and it's lovely to meet you again. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Manavi. I work with DeFi. I also work in Bangalore with Boycha and Abhijit on this call. I work in the impact function within DeFi, which is a broad term for a lot of things, but mainly I think what we're interested in, once the program is implemented, we want to be able to understand what's the effect it's had on the communities and the learners that we work with. So a lot of my effort is directed into understanding what are the appropriate ways of capturing those changes, and what might be some course corrections that might be needed along the way. So I think I have learned more than perhaps I have given in terms of expertise in this role, but I think that's the nature of what we do. And that's what keeps things exciting and alive. So yeah, very excited to be here and share what we can. So thank you.
Hi everyone, I hope I am audible. So I'm Nishant. I'm based out of Bangalore, but I'm a hopper in DeFi, and by the virtue of being a hopper, I keep hopping from place to place. And currently, I'm joining from Project DeFi's newest Nook in Pune, the Kasawadi Nook. And right now, I'm talking from the Nook itself. As you can see, like the place. I might show you the place in the time. So I've been a lifelong learning enthusiast and learned. I keep on learning lots of things, helping other people learn, and that's what made me join DeFi 5 years ago. And since then, I'm here. I
Well,
have loved it, like loved it, everything here. And being a hopper, I get to do little bit of everything. A little bit of research, a little bit of impact, a little bit of program design, a little bit of operations. I just love all of that. So that's me. Yeah.
thank you everyone for sharing. Just on your introductions, I think that we learn a lot. Like things that I learned from what you said is that people stay at DeFi. Like nowadays, finding someone that has stayed in the same organization for 5 years, they're doing something good. This is very weird. So yeah, I'm sure that you work a lot on team building, and that all this horizontal mindset that we want to bring to children is already integrated in the team. And the second thing that captured my attention was the term hoppers. Right, like in conventional companies, they give you fancy names like project lead, and type of things are like little budgets for your ego to kind of make you feel good about yourself. Well, inventing new terms like a hopper, because you jump from one place to another creating Nooks, it's wonderful, and it's kind of changing the paradigm about what it means to kind of engage in work and life more holistically, I would say.
Yeah, what I was thinking is like, or the word that came to my mind was learners. Like all of them are super keen on keep learning and keep growing and developing, and yeah, there is no difference between living and learning. So that's cool.
Yeah, and thank you as well for bringing this diverse team with Manavi and Anushka to learn about the impact as well, because it's something I think we're missing a lot in these new learning models, that we need to show the results to be able to convince more people. Because I think many times the decisions to take a different direction in education is taken from an emotional place, out of trauma of children or from our own
Fear.
But then having that rational arguments as well can be very powerful for systems change, level transformation. So let's start with the first question, because we want to go all the way from the beginning, starting with how did Project DeFy start, and maybe there Abhijit can share a little bit about that story with us.
it's a long story, so I usually now don't share the whole thing, because otherwise nobody else will get any chance to speak. But I, a lot of why DeFi, or the why the Nook started, was was based on my very personal challenge with education. In my house, and in many Indian houses, this is a very common thing. When you grow up, everybody is constantly telling you that you should study hard, you should skip a few birthdays, and it's okay that there is some misery, but you're gonna do well in your exams, and then one day you'll go to a good college, and then you're gonna find a good job, and then at the end of that tunnel will be happiness, and success and freedom, and these things are just waiting there in the future, and all you have to do is sacrifice a little bit of your childhood. And 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 to in many ways, I did believe that, and I bought into um, that theory, and I worked hard. I did well. I got a decent college. I got a good job. And the very first day I walked into that office, uh, when you walk into a new workplace, everybody kind of turns around to look at you, to see who's the new kid in the block. And they all looked, and in that microsecond I could tell not one person here is happy or free, or is living that life I was promised. um, and then I spent the next 6 months in that office, and I every day I would hear my colleagues who would be right in the next cubicle. Every morning they would come to the office, sit in the chair, hang back, wave their hair around, and be like, Abhijit, just wait and watch. I'm gonna quit my job in 3 months, and I'm gonna follow my dreams. I'm gonna be a musician, I'm gonna be an artist, I'm gonna start my own company. And they would say that, and by the time it would be evening, the boss would take us out to have some drinks, and by the time it would be weekend, there's a party, and by the time it's the end of the month, there's a gift, and by the time it's 3 months, it is a retreat, and in 6 months, there's a foreign trip. All of the complaints in the morning were getting forgotten by the time it was evening. And this, just every day of complaining, and nobody was quitting, nobody left, that scared me so much that I was like, I cannot live like this, I cannot complain for the rest of my life, um, and live in meaninglessness, and without any plans or any ideas of what to do. I just decided to leave that job, um, and move to a village, and that's where I started. I mean, the entire thing was that I felt very betrayed, but I also knew that it was not my parents' fault. They also were taught the same thing, and somehow this lie has been propagating for a while. And I realized that the reason why this we keep telling children that there is happiness at the end of the tunnel is not so that because so that they can become happy after 20 years. It's only so that they can get used to not being happy, and so once the 20 years are over and they go to work, they're okay with not being happy. They don't ask this question, why is everybody so unhappy? Why do I have to find happiness on a weekend or during vacations? So all that anger and frustration started channeling um, into creating a space, initially just for myself, to start my education all over again. And incidentally, I started doing some experiments in that village with phones and with laptops, and seeing what children do if if you just let them be, uh, and you let them decide what we should do and how we should spend the day. And that's how the first Nook came about. We were really doing was every morning sitting together, a bunch of 13-14 year olds and me, asking ourselves, what are we going to spend the day doing? And that single question became a learning space, with no money, with no no real tools or equipment, no great infrastructure, just a borrowed space and about 6 kids. And me, all of us were quite lost, and there was no real person to guide. So that's how we created this learning space with people who are not experts, nobody who's a teacher, nobody who really knows how education should work, but everybody who has experienced education and knows what they hated. um, this was all happening in 2014. um, we ended up creating a nameless space where eventually 70-80 people from the village and from surrounding villages used to come every day. They would create something, they would fix their bicycles, they would build ball throwing machines, and they would um, put LEDs on clothes so that they can see them light up and wear them. They would do all kinds of stupid things, and they were answerable to nobody, you know and yet they were answerable to everybody in that space. And this was the beauty of not having any authority in this environment. um, at some point I decided to leave, and I wanted to test that, is this really a space, a learning environment where there is no teacher, that there is nobody who's giving structure, or is it that this place is that I'm the one who's being the teacher, I'm just a good teacher. And eventually I left. The whole space was left to the village, and I went off to Meghalaya, and that was my first time to Meghalaya, and lived in deep rural Meghalaya with no access to phone connection and so on, for 3 months. And then I came back to see what's happened with this little learning space inside a little village that at the time was not even on the map. And I come back, and they had moved the space because we could not keep being in the same space, so they had moved it to another space. I tried to go inside, but it was packed. It was very difficult to walk inside. So eventually I made my way. There were all these people who I did not know. I almost thought that maybe now somebody else rented the place and maybe there's a wedding going on or something like that. But no, deep inside were a couple of learners that I knew, I recognized. There were some people I knew very well, and they decided they told everybody to stop, and they introduced me to to the people who were there. And this was quite mind blowing, to be introduced in your own space. I created that space, and then all of these people had no idea who I was. In fact, it didn't matter. Like, they listened to it for half a second and then they turned back and ignored me as if I didn't exist, which hurt my ego for 30 seconds. But then I also felt really good about the fact that the space had truly become theirs. And we also found out that I went inside and I see all these tools that we never had. The community was actually putting things in the space as opposed to taking them out. All the things that had broken, they had fixed them. All of the, like, they were really, this was entirely theirs. So I never unpacked. I just left again. And I went off to figure out now that the space exists and it is kind of working. I had to go the next 8 months trying to understand why it works, and my personal journey of decolonizing my mind began. So that's the little story of the origin of the first Nook.
Wow. Oh, amazing.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for sharing. You left us, I think, with more questions than answers now. With very curious about. I'm sure lots of people listening. I'm very curious right now about by how that the space work. How do you do that? That people actually take responsibility for the whole space and run it, and there's not chaos, and they're not throwing things to their heads. Like, how can we do this? So maybe if some of you, I think Anushka was gonna share a little bit about what is a Nook. Let's try to define this concept, but more than what it is, which it's going to be perhaps something hard, how it works, and what can we learn from the structures that enable self-directed education.
Sure. No, I think, it's funny because if you ask a learner what a Nook is, you'll find very different answers. So it's very difficult to give, one sentence on, okay, this is what it is, because I think the idea of a space like this is that people sort of take away what they want from it, and then they also give a lot back to it. So it really depends on their like their interests, their motivations, and what they want to make of their time over there. Um, but for the sake of a definition, I mean, I don't think I'd consider it a definition, but in essence, I think what makes Nook sort of similar across geographies is that it certainly is designed to be a learning environment where um, essentially anybody can come and learn. What that means is that there aren't any age restrictions or gender barriers or restrictions from perhaps where you belong, like your social status and other indicators like that. Um, so the accessibility of the space is a very important aspect of the Nook. It also sort of, I think Abhijit kind of descriptively pointed out, what it looks like, and it paints this picture of a lot of people experimenting with things all the time. And of course, for that to happen, there are some basic tools and basic, equipment that is available in every Nook, including the internet, including a few laptops. But having said that, the learners are also encouraged from the very beginning to, make use of what is available in their community. And that's a very important aspect of when the Nook is first set up, rather than buying everything or like going to a market and purchasing it. The immediate instinct is to sort of figure out if there is something that can be recycled, if there's something that can be repurposed, so things like that. And that's what makes the Nook what it is. And I think Nishant can also talk a bit more and perhaps show us what the Nook looks like where he is. Uh, but yeah, and when it comes to the learning process itself at the Nook, so we've talked about self-directed learning, self-designed learning. I think in very simple words, if I were to describe what that means, I think the idea of this concept is that people are really sort of free to choose what they want to learn and how they want to learn it, and also for how long they want to learn it. So these are the aspects which are sort of, the flexibility of the learning journey is very important for the Nook. And that is what makes every learner's journey so unique and so different, like I said. And it's usually hard because sometimes, especially in impact or research, we're asked to point out like what are the outcomes of the Nook, or what are the specific things that people like, what are the things that have been achieved. And usually it's so different, right? From every Nook will have a very different set of things that they've done, and that really depends on what is the contextual challenge that that community is facing. And we've seen that a lot, actually. I mean, I think that each Nook is set up in a community, whether it's in India or whether it's in Africa or Bangladesh. All of these places have their own community, needs and aspirations, and very, very different challenges. And we often find that learners find a way to address many of these community problems through their project, which makes it very interesting. So, for instance, last year I had a chance to visit Rwanda, where we've had a Nook for several years now. And if you see the kind of projects they're doing, a lot of them revolve around space savings furniture. And the reason why they're trying to build space saving furniture is because the area where it's located, it's kind of a semi urban area, and there's a serious lack of space in their homes. Like, they don't have enough space. And so you find so many learners who've done like 3-in-1 beds and 2-in-1 chairs and tables and all kinds of things like that. So a lot of the learners kind of take up things that are relevant in their context. And I think the contextual nature of the learning is what makes it sort of different and unique at the Nook. So yeah, I think that is roughly what a Nook is, and perhaps Nishant can also at a later stage show us what the Pune Nook is currently looking like.
Or maybe now, or
Yeah. Do you think it's feasible? Because I don't know if there's more people in their space or not. But, and if you can move the laptop around, Nishan, that would be amazing.
he's getting
Yeah, give me a moment. I'll have to turn on the lights, all of them. Uh, so as it has been told that the Nook has some basic tools and materials. So like as you can see, we have some power tools over here.
Uh-huh.
All of these are like carpentry power tools, metal power tools, through which you can work on different things. Apart from this, a very important part of the Nooks always is the tool board. Every Nook, wherever you go, you will see one tool board. Although we are working on evolving this design, where we are putting things in a different way, but there will be a basic tool board, the power tools, then some saving machines, materials of electronics, a little bit of kitchen we have. Very interesting thing which is happening here in Pune now since I got the chance to flaunt it. Uh, so give me a moment. Yeah. So here, as you see, this is a library shelf. Can you guess what is this made up of?
What it's made of? It
Yeah.
looks it looks like glass, perhaps, and wood.
No, it's wood only.
uh
But so basically, there when around this nook in the locality, there was a bed which was thrown on the side of the road. Me, like us as the learners, we were like, this could be useful somehow. We just carried it inside the nook, and then we all repurposed it to a library shelf.
Nice.
awesome.
And while we were starting, some learners were like they wanted to learn a little bit of pottery. So initially we started with making a pottery wheel of our own,
Wow.
and this pottery wheel has been made using a repurposed sieving machine table.
Nice.
So these are some things which you will find in almost all the nooks. And like here in this nook, we are building the shelves and the wiring of this space all by ourselves along with the learners. So
Mhm.
like we are each space we are personalizing it, or as Anushka said, contextualizing it as per the requirements of the space, requirement of the community. So yeah.
Wow,
Awesome.
no, it's so amazing when you listen to the children and to the people and like start uh, kind of accompany them and support them to do whatever they want to do, like creativity and learning just poof, goes, and it's just amazing, like the amount of things that there is no non-stop, and that's so exciting. I'm so glad that you show us. Maybe Nishan, could you share a little bit more about if we go to that community engagement? Could you share some examples of the challenges and the learnings that you have had around that community engagement?
Yeah, because what you showed us, it transmitted to me a deep sense of belonging. That's their space. They want to make it their own. They are making it better, using tools to improve it. How do you get there? How do you get to that feeling of really getting involved into it? Because usually in the schools it's the opposite. It's like you, you need to be forced to get in there, and you're doing everything that's in your power to escape.
And
So
also
how do you change the dynamic?
and destroying the things, like you are
Yeah.
not attached to those things because then you are
Uh-huh.
there
Yeah.
because of an imposition.
Yeah, that I'll start answering in this way. So as Anushka, I'll pick it up from where Anushka left. So when we talk about this self-designed learning or self-directed learning, so simply speaking, it's the place where in self-designed learning, the learners get to decide what they want to learn. They get to decide how they want to learn. They get to decide to what extent or how long they want to learn. Now, a lot of times. Also, picking up from what Abhijit said about the community engagements, a lot of times when we go into the community, we start thinking they are the beneficiaries, and we are going to do a kind of help them. That savior complex, that's there. But as per my experience working with various different communities, it's really difficult to build trust with communities if you go with that complex, because they are living their life, and it's their life, it's the way they want to live. Who are you to come from outside and just you need this thing, you do this, you need this thing, you do this. You, instead of that, how we start doing is we ask them, okay, what do you need, what kind of things do you need. So accordingly, how we do is, first we create our Nook model is kind of a, you can say, template model. So first we start with a basic template where we are having the basic tools, we are having the basic materials and everything just to get started. And then we start with the community, and since it takes a lot of time to build trust with community, we go with a partner, some organization or people who have been working in the community for quite some long time, so that they also know the community people and the trust is there. And then we go with them, we talk with the community people, how is their life, what's their life. And most of the times, like me being a hopper, I actually go and live with the community people. As you can see, like this Nook is here in the community itself. I've been living here like since it's been around a month, and I'll be living 1 month more. And it's a vibrant community here. So we are living with them and trying to understand the life they are leading. And instead of just thinking they might be facing this problem, they might be facing that problem, you live with them, you will understand what the problem is, what are the issues, or is there a problem even. Like most of the times we go with this thing, there will be problem. But what if there is no problem? You know, so you never know. So living with them, we come to understand their dreams, their aspirations, and then we like just tell them, okay, there is this space, you can use it to help yourself, you can use it to develop yourself and all, like however you want. It's your space. And we start doing initial processes with them. Like we have uh, our own process of self-design learning in the Nook, which have some, I'm gonna throw some terms here like early projects, exploration, goal setting that we do, where people are finding out what they like to do and all, and then learning on how to pursue that. And
That's
one major
interesting.
thing which I have learned,
If I can
what
interrupt you a little bit just to reflect on what you share, because it's such meaningful integration with the community. I mean, living with them, really trying to understand their context, questioning the whole concept that there's a problem to solve. Um, wow, that's so insightful, and I'm so jealous about your job at the same time. It's like sounds like the most fun thing to do in the world, going from one community to another, sharing your life with people. Um, but another thing that comes to my mind when I have tried to do things, even in my own hometown in the south of Spain, when I went to do like some sharing workshop with some of the visuals and then inviting people, is that people were not used at all to share their ideas. They felt that they had to it kind of. My impression was that they had to protect themselves, right? So never exposing yourself, never sharing what you actually want, never sharing your needs. Those kind of things that happen in communities as well, just because you have to maintain a status and a social situation. So how do you, because and then the goal, as we know, is a horizontal learning space where people feel empowered to pursue their dreams. To pursue your dreams, you need to identify them, you need to be able to
To
be in
speak
that
them
place.
out.
Yeah, there's a lot of vulnerability that it's involved. How do you how do you do this in local communities? How do you break those social barriers?
yeah, this has been a one major learning for me, like working through all these years with the community. Being non-judgmental with the people is the key for me. You have to talk with them in a very non-judgmental way, and there have to be love. Like the people should feel loved at your space with you. And I'm gonna quote our partners, SAS Foundation, with whom we are working here. I was talking with them, and they said, like, they told me, you go with this community, you show them the love, and they will return you like 10 times, 100 times of that. And this is what has been happening. So the point is just simple here. You don't have to judge them. Like, you cannot. You accept them as they are, and they will accept you as you are. And then the exchange will happen where they will tell their problems or their dreams. You will tell your dreams. As much vulnerable as we can be, that we have to be. Otherwise, it doesn't work, because if we are not vulnerable, we are judging, then it's all a facade. And they will also know, because in the community that we work already, like lots of NGOs and lots of other organizations, they are coming, they are working. So they have seen, like, somebody comes and gives them a blanket, somebody comes, give them food. But when we truly connect with them, that's where this magic happens. And this I have seen, like, um, sometimes ago, in our Chennai Nook, I heard from them. Learners were sitting in an opening circle, and they started like talking that, you know, what if the Nook was not there? Learners were talking among themselves, and they were telling that if the Nook was not there, I would have been involved with other people in criminal activities or like that. But today, I'm sitting here uh, working on my video editing thing. I'm sitting here working on my drone project. I'm sitting here working on my fertilizer project. So the learners only, they themselves talk. And I remember one story which Boicha told me where, uh, sorry, Boicha, that also got me really moved. Like, in Zimbabwe, they opened the Nook, and there were lots of problems. People were moving to South Africa from there because food, food was in a scarcity, and lots of resources were in scarcity. There was this one person who had kept his bag packed and all, and he was like, once his mother goes back to the Nook, he will run away. But he came to the Nook, he was like, this is something different. Let me try for 1 week. If something happens, then I will. If it's good, I'll stay. If it's not good, anyway, I will go. And that person has been there for 3 years. He recently contacted Boisa, and he was like, now he's a staff member of the Nook there. So changes like this, they made me stay here for 5 years.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I guess that also sometimes if maybe it's even more difficult to have a mask and to be strong than showing yourself authentically. And like I know that it seems the opposite, but then that you consume a lot of energy to try to be someone you are not. So maybe yes, when you see people that are being authentic and that are showing themselves completely vulnerable, then it gives you an space for you to also do the same. And then it feels good, so then you keep doing it, and then that the barriers start breaking up, and then you enter in a safe space, in which you feel, or you are even discovering yourself in that space, no? Whew, okay, so that's
Yeah, lots of learnings here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, another thing which like we found out, and I think everybody knows there, food and festivals and music, they're like one of the biggest factors which bring people together. And we have been using that a lot. Like, we do Saturday potluck, we do lots of festivals with the communities. Sometimes we all just sit together and we are singing songs, playing some random drums on tables and all. So that keeps them going.
And in talking about the communities, a common challenge of many people that are starting a new learning center is how to communicate its value to families. Like, maybe young people want to be there because they can play, they have their friends and so on, but the families are thinking, no, you should have been going there. You have to focus on your studies and homework and all that kind of thing. Have you found that challenge in some of the communities?
Very much. But this also comes from this notion that you have to go to the school, you have to get a degree, because if you don't get a degree, you won't get a job, you won't be able to survive in this world, and all.
Mhm.
So there is this inherent fear that is in everyone. And I don't know. Here I might start sounding like a little bit, more romantic, but people are just, too much into that you just have to follow this set path. Do 10th, after that 12th, get to some degree college, get to some job. Uh, they are just living their dreams here and there.
Mm.
And every time such a space comes, like the Nook here in the community also, it become a lot of times it starts becoming kind of a supplementary space instead of becoming the main space for people, and that's also fine with us, because it takes time for people to understand what this space holds and all. For us, one of the major thing which has helped us in helping people understand those values are opening and the closing circle that we do here. Like we all are sitting together in the opening closing circle, we talk about how are you feeling, what are you doing, what's your goal is, what did you do today, what will you do tomorrow maybe. And we talk about various different things around economics, politics, gender, all of this. So this starts making people understand these things more. So this discussion part is really important. This helps people make the worldview,
Mhm.
develop their own worldview. Because if you go to the mainstream, there is already a set agenda. Like people sitting here in Pune, they are learning about French Revolution, Russian Revolution. They do not know history of their own place. They are learning about forest of Amazon when they don't know about plants or animals of their own locality. So once we start telling them all of this, we start having conversation around this, the understanding starts coming. But it's a gradual process. Building trust with the community, building engagement with the community, it's a gradual process. And you have to be fully authentic. It cannot just happen like this. You went to the community and you opened a new space, and in 3 months it's full with people, everybody is aligned with your values. Not gonna happen. You have to give at least 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
With patience and love, and working on that relationships, no, I feel that that's like the core of everything. Like once that we get to know each other and want and can create things together and can ask questions and challenge ourselves and then keep going, that set like kind of a fertile soil for the things that people decide to start
Mm.
growing, no.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
think anyone else would like to share about this topic, because it's quite profound. I think facing the fear that is installed in society, in ourselves, about how the future of children, and facing the fear of being vulnerable in front of other people, and being able to build a space for based on trust.
yeah, because from what Abhijit said before, no, like it seems that there is no other way, which is like craziness from all the diversity of possibilities that there is in the world. There is only one way to be happy and successful in life. But then is that definition of happiness and success yours or someone else established it? So, but that it's because it's kind of a cultural thing. Then we are complete fears comes in. Like,
Mhm.
what are you gonna do? Someone else would like to add something there?
Otherwise, we can move on to Abhijit, I think.
No, I think one of the problems in trying to create community spaces is that we have to do that while being a part of the development sector, the idea of development. And unfortunately, a large part of the idea of development comes from the same things that have caused the problem. And so in some ways, you're trying to solve the problem from the same paradigm that is the reason for the problem to exist in the first place. The reason for the problem to exist, and the this breakdown of community and and human values and connection with nature, and all of that is because of a extremely extractive mindset, which is very impatient, which wants big things to happen in 3 years, otherwise it's not worth it. um, but but I think if you're building a community environment, if you're trying to become a part of a community, this is not a 3-year project. This is not a 5-year project. This is not something like, it's not a shop that you create and in 6 months you start showing how many people come and buy stuff. It is very different, and unfortunately this difference is very hard for people to understand, because you're all still coming from that extractive background. We've all studied in schools, we've all gone to jobs, and we've all uh, unconsciously built this impatience. um, you know like, just think about it. If you, because you're creating a community space, you're very worried, oh my god, people are not coming so quickly. But what if you had moved into a new neighborhood? Would you expect 100 people to show up on day 3? No, you would not, and that would be very unnatural. This is this unnatural expectation is because we see it as a job, as a task, as a shop to open, as something to finish in 3 years somehow. um, and if we go by history, even the the British colonial schools took a good 25-30 years for even them to become popular. That's so we have to change the scale at which we are trying to assess uh, how we create change. As long as we keep that scale the same way as we keep it for corporations and factories and for products and for technology, we will see the same toxicity that we see in those environments. And I think that is really important for all of us. I think we have never tried to train anybody to be a teacher, but we always encourage everybody to be a learner. That's the only training, that's the only support system that we have, is how to learn. How do you spend your time learning incredibly well for your sake, not for the organization, not for anybody else, not for a donor, for sure, like for you. And if you can do that very well, and you can show that you are struggling to learn, and you have that vulnerability, then everybody else will find a lot of comfort in just being around you. And I think that's what builds a community. When they see somebody being there, um, with vulnerability, as you also said, Loz, because sharing your vulnerability is the greatest amount of respect you could give somebody else. And respect is extremely lacking in the social space. When people think of communities, the default thought is that a community, oh, they must have problems, let me go and solve them. But dignity and respect comes from, when I go to the community, I have problems. Maybe that community will help me solve those problems. Uh, those children in Banjarapalya, I don't think at any point of time I created any change in their lives, but they for sure created a lot of change in mine. And that's, uh, as long as you have that sort of an attitude, which really does not fit the sort of NGO social sector paradigm. But I feel that that's a better way to do things.
Yeah. I really like the supported by the community, because that's kind of what it felt also with the fire. Like, things happened and we lost everything, and the community supported us, and that's the key. Like, we are there. Well, everybody is holding you. And another thing that came to my mind is this golden circle of communication that make me question many things. Like, normally they say that it's important to share first the why, the how, and the what. And then I was realizing, like, okay, we know why we are doing what we are doing. No, we are trying to support children and to develop themselves and a fully integral human being. We know what we are doing through these horizontal structures, supporting them in that learning. But then for me, for example, in that moment of the way I was working, the how I was working, I was at the end following in the or falling in the same patterns of, oh, I have to get these results, I have to be productive, I have to be effective, and then I cannot like waste time. So yeah, I had clear the why and the what, but the how I was doing it, it wasn't the right way. And then I needed to unlearn also and start deciding the way we want to work. And yeah, we cannot expect things to be super fast because we are creating trust, we are building communities, and that takes time. And yeah, and the results are not going to be like super fast, and that's okay, because also then we shift from the focusing on the results, but on the process of living, and that's more, that's really cool, that's really exciting also, because yeah, there's no end on it.
And
Anyways,
talking about things that move fast, one of them that's lately taking more and more headlines in the it's technology, and we're also curious about how you're integrated. We know you already since quite a few years back, actually, since we started all this. You were a key part of the inspiration that triggered the creation of Evolving Education. And I'm curious about how you're doing with technology for learning, how you're integrating in Nooks, how you're looking into it. In our case, it's going faster than we managed to learn how to integrate it into our own work. So I'm curious how you're using it in Nooks.
Yeah, I can go, I think. Yeah. I think about tech, about technology, I think I think we get a lot of these questions, even from people who are visiting the Nook, people who are interested in the Nook, and even from, say, organizations, funders, and all also. But I think you already seen from or heard from Nissan and what Anushka said, right? We are not a very high-tech space where there's a laser cutting machine, 3D printing machine by any standard of, say, maker space or anything like that. Right? And we just have very basic tools, laptop, internet. That's it. I think we are not a very high-tech space for sure. So how do we integrate tech? We are not, I think, forced to say, have a curriculum or a syllabus or something like, say digital skills, or say sessions on, for example, say designing, different things. We don't have particular syllabus, but how we are using the tech is based on different criteria, or based on different sort of like stories also. For example, since we are trying to do something new, also something innovative, something a little bit crazy also, right? So what are the things that community or people or learners fear of? Maybe they fear the technology because of maybe different factors, right? Say, for example, in school, I think people have a fear of coding. A lot of people have a fear of, say, when they see the different codes, and then they automatically fear, like, I don't want to touch this anymore, or all those things, right? So we what we try to do is we try to explore, or say tech in a very different way, by combination of different learning areas. For example, coding can be, doesn't have to necessarily teach ABCD or coding. So we do different sessions. Like, for example, last of the sessions that we do coding is people are making websites, web pages about their political party, and they're campaigning the elections and all those things. So it's a little bit more fun, interesting. That's how we try to do tech stuff also, not in a very teaching. And also one thing for sure is also, in the beginning, uh, the tools that we have, the tech stuff that we have, it allows them to explore the basic different things, right? But along the way, learners start to develop their own interest, their own way. So then the Nook also have little bit of specialization after 2 3 4 years, like that. For example, some of the Nooks in Bangalore, they lean towards more electronic stuff, robotics, IoT, like, because the learners are more interested in that stuff. And then some of the Nooks are more interested in, say, arts, music, and then they have a different ways of doing this. For example, in Rwanda, after 3 years, they make their own music studio, a very nice recording studio. They have upgraded the equipments, all those things. But it took a long time, a little bit of time to figure out, say, what are we really interested? What do we come together and do stuff? So that's also, it's a little long process for us, like how the text are using in the Nook. This, these decisions were taken by the learners also. Some of the new things that we are uh, buying, and also one thing is for sure also is, we are not trying to say consume whatever is available, all those things, right? And then uh, for example, we always also try to go back to traditional methods, practices, which we often forgotten in this so-called modern tech world. I think we have a lot of history of, in various community, there's a lot of history, traditional practice which are more advanced than what we have right now, right? So uh, so which are often forgotten, and say which are often disregarded as lost art, which doesn't have value, all these things also. But still, uh, we, through discussion, through conversation, uh, uh, people people are doing this stuff also. And then yeah, in terms of most of the tech stuff are using it for as a learning source. For example, free open source platform which are often easily available, and then as they go higher and higher, and then when the learners spend more and more time, they started to develop more complicated projects, more complicated ideas, all those things. That's how the journey, how the learners go along with the tech. Also doesn't have to be necessarily only tech. Also, there are a lot of other things focused in the Nook which are beyond tech stuff. So we don't actually make amazing or very high quality stuff in the Nook by any comparison of any, say, hackathon, or any other competition. But yeah, we it's a sort of like very organic process, how every Nooks decide what kind of expertise they're building, what kind of and the learner also decide, do I need this, why am I using this, all those things also. Yeah.
Thank you, Boyce. Because it's also it breaks a little bit that barrier that many people might have of, if we want to provide them with tech skills or something, it's going to be expensive. We will need a lot of resources, and there's already a lot available. And if we're following those interests and passions and projects that are developed by the learners, I'm sure that they themselves will be able to find the tools that they need to progress in that. And we don't all the adults supporting them need to become tech experts on every field in the planet. I think we can keep transferring that responsibility back to the learners.
Maybe we can also go a little bit deeper on how can we start a Nook, or how can people collaborate and join the network that you are creating.
Yeah, I think this is one question that we have been pondering also quite a lot. How I think you have heard of how a visit start the first learning space, right? And then how we are doing now is a little bit different, based on so many criteria, restrictions, and all those things also. Ideally, we would love to take little longer time, little more calm, say, and then start the Nook very slow process organically, like say how Abhijit started, like say in the beginning, like how he started with no answerable to anyone, just coming together. And then but sometimes with all this, still we are also so some part of this development sector what we call. And then there are some responsibility, all those things also, right? So now, how to start a Nook? We we're not able to do that, in a very long time, very organically build the together along, started the Nook, and then become the Nook. So right now, how we are starting the Nook is anybody, like say any organization, any interested people, they approach us, or any community also they approach us to us, like say with the intention of say they wanted to have a Nook in the community. We don't go around and say we will set up this Nook in this community, that community. I think through our network, I think our work, and then people came to know about a lot of us, and then they approached to us that we need a Nook in this community. So, but first of all, again, considering continuing from what Nissan said, right? What is the Nook going to do with the community? Why did just because that we wanted to grow or we wanted to scale up, we just don't go and set up? What is the lives that the community are living, the problem or challenges or the aspiration, the needs? Is it matching with the Nook, or is the community are accepting this idea? So that's what the first conversation that we have with any people who approach and say they wanted to have the Nook in their community or in their place. So after we had this community conversation and all, we had a sort of like try to bring resource together, look out in different way. If the resources are already available, that's great. Otherwise, we try to look for and then look together, bring resource together, and that's how we do the setup. But there's a very new recent development happening with us also. For sure, like right now, it took around 3 to 6 months to start a Nook, and this is I think little bit forcefully starting the Nook, not very organically, because there's some timeline with the funders and all this thing, like we have to start this project, all those things, right? And the idea is that with this, it's little resource intensive, and also the idea of the idea that started with DeFi is not to just create Nook for the sake of uh, for the growth scale, all those things, right? So uh, right now we are trying to work on an idea like how on a model called zero Nook model also, which doesn't cost anything to start a Nook, which doesn't cost uh, any money, doesn't require too much of uh, resource mobilization, all those things also. The model is basically if people or any individual, any educator, aspiring educator, any people from the community, if they have the will or say some aspiration to change the system, they can reach out to us and say, and then we go through this journey together and start and look very organically, like without so much of tools, resources, very from the beginning. So more of like a fellowship style, like how we started the first Nook. Which will which in the beginning it might not be a Nook, but in 4 5 years it may incorporate the Nook values, the Nook principles, then can become a Nook later on. So that's one model we are trying to work, is because if we want to create a movement, if we want to change the system, we can't just depend on say funders. We can't just so much depends on this very resource intensive models, all those things also. So yeah, this is another way, and then again the first model that we talk about also. Yeah,
Thank you.
very different approach. Yeah, thanks.
No, it's fantastic because it's building trust. It's really like that's a process. That is slow, both the local partners and the communities. So it's not like sign here and it will magically appear and 30 people
Yeah.
will engage forever. It's not gonna happen that way. So it's amazing that you have the transparency as well to say, hey, it's gonna be a long journey. We're gonna become friends along this process. And for anyone watching Project DeFy, in their website, you can find as well like contact information in case you're interested in opening Nooks. I want to show some of the comments that we are getting, because I think you might get some messages soon because of the people listening. You see people excited to see the Nooks, really interesting, amazing,
There are some questions
amazing
also.
work. You guys are truly inspiring. What else? What else we got over here? We got about the confidence that the young people build on themselves and how that's turned into friendship and collaboration. Um,
Yes, maybe some quick question that they asked
uh-huh.
over there was, what is the age group for having people in the project?
Who wants to take this? It's a fun answer. Go for it.
Yeah. So actually, normally in Hindi, in the community I tell this term called arts is art. So anybody from like mostly from age 8 or 10 to whatever age they want to come, like we are not having any barrier.
Mhm.
People of all ages are welcome to come because
I
one
think
of sorry.
as of now, I think the oldest learner is I think 72 years old.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
Awesome. We
yeah.
got another one about how do you guide kids to explore new activities and then work on their dreams? That's a big one. That's a whole process. It's not.
This is we were doing a session with all the team and recently, and I showed everybody three photos. So the first photo was this photo of a classroom, conventional like government school in India, and uh, and I asked, so how do you feel about this place? They're like, yeah, it feels a bit restrictive, doesn't feel like a very empowering space. Then the second photo was of a school where it's like it's a beautiful environment. It's a like a bridge, and there's a lot of nature around, and kids are working really hard on doing an assignment, but like on the floor, there's no desks or much nicer. And they're like, yeah, this is a great school. This is amazing. This is a kind of space which empowers kids. And then I showed the third school, and there were two kids in a forest picking up, I think, bugs, and and their feet were half in mud, and they had just two kids, very very young. And then everybody's like, oh, actually, you know what? This is even better. This is amazing. These kids are having the most most empowering environment where they can explore and find what they like. And then I told them that actually the third one was not a school, it was just two kids in, in some random place. And they are able to create a beautiful relationship between themselves, with nature, with playing and figuring things out. Nobody is really guiding them. This comes very naturally to people. Schools are designed to guide people out of their natural behavior as opposed to guide them towards positive living experience. So children actually, this question I have never heard from a child. I've only heard this question from an adult, that how will who will guide the children. Never kids are not saying that, oh, who will guide us. Unless they've been in school for too long. But this figuring out, um, the journey of figuring things out and failing, and what's going to happen if nobody's guiding. At best they will try something and fail, and that's okay. There is no label in the Nook which calls them a failure. But they fail all the time, and they struggle all the time, and this is very much a part of their learning experience. um, the guidance that we are usually thinking of is actually taking away the child's natural ability to fail and learn from failure, and instead making sure that no, they only and always keep succeeding, and we de-risk the failure. That's why if the failure happens, it's a very big deal, and you're labeled one way or another. So no, there is I think the adults have needed a lot more guidance sometimes, but the kids are actually quite okay.
Yeah, I was finding that like the definition that we have of learning, I just realized I keep having this hat of
the
the
duck.
duck. Anyway, this is so funny. We have this definition of learning, which is completely like when we think of learning. If I ask any person in walking in the street, what are you learning? They will say no, which is like craziness because we are learning all the time. But then what is happening is that the definition, the concept of learning that we have is pretty much inside a class, isolated from the world. There is someone telling us what we have to do, and then there is exams to check that we have learned, which is like, oh my goodness, what has happened? No, like now we have to detach from that concept and kind of be open to what learning is that is happening all the time and everywhere. So that's
I think
craziness.
it's
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier to detach from that concept if you understand why that concept exists. Why is it that only when somebody goes to school and gets certified for their learning do we call them educated? This is the best way to, like, this is how we end up with us and thinking that our grandmothers are uneducated people, and the people in my village and my tribe, people living in the forest are not learning. They're just stupid. They do not have a sense of the world. And I, who has finished education, left my village, left my tribe, gone to a city. Now I live in a small building overlooking a big tower and looking at glass buildings, and surrounded by stench, but incrementally making slightly more money every year. I am successful. I am educated, and my grandmother, who has free space and a decent farm and a lot of clean air, clean water, and the ability to not do anything during her day if she wants to, is somehow uneducated. This there is a making people believe this is has been a very important sort of pillar for capitalism to succeed somehow. Because if you did not do that, why would people go down this journey? Why would they want to access? Why would they want to leave already happy lives just to go and live in misery in cities, in crowds, and most importantly, if they did not leave their villages, and if they did not uh, define success as being educated and moving to a city as opposed to being uneducated and living in the village, if they didn't do that, how would you take away everything from them? How would you take their resources, their water, their air, their health, the time they could spend with their children, you know uh, everything? This only becomes possible by sending somebody to a school. It allows a system to take and take and take.
Yeah, and separate yourself from the rest, from nature, from what is important to you and what makes you healthy. Then we take you outside that, and then and then you have a lot of mental health problems that you have to solve because you are completely
And it's becoming like more and more common for some of my friends to share that how lost they feel, and trapped in a way, in a job that they don't like, in a lifestyle they don't like, but at the same time so afraid to leave that because they've been conditioned that that's the only way possible, and outside that it's losing everything. Like they use exactly those words: I will lose everything. It's like, well, I mean, you're here so you might gain all the other possibilities, but it's a long journey, and starting from the beginning giving these options, it's such a, and also not just freedom, because I was going to say it's such degree of freedom. It's also interconnectedness, because it's what you do is learning in communities, realizing that we are not alone in this world. It's not just about my own learning journey, but how it's connected with all the people in my community.
yeah, and your dreams are intertwined with the dreams of other people, and you create something together. And also related to those things of the dreams, like the motivation change, the dreams change, you keep evolving all the time. Like there's not one thing that we are going to be passionate or our lives. It's something that it keeps evolving, and yeah, for some reason it has been really restricted to that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, just to share a personal story. At some point in my, what it seems like a past life, I felt like there were only like 3 cities in the world where I could live. if I wanted to be successful, because I was in the pharmaceutical industry, fast track to become a business development head in country lead and all these fancy titles. And either I live in London, Boston, or San Diego, otherwise I wasn't successful, right? And I was already in one of them, so I needed to move to the larger city in another place where it paid more. But I look around me and my mentors and managers and so on, and wonder, do I want their lives? And and the answer was very clearly no. But it was very hard to jump out of that boat. So we are talking here about something very big. We're starting talking about how to support kids. Now we're talking about changing society and systems change. So let's talk a little bit with Manavi about systems change, because you're doing something quite tremendous. A lot of people want to create a learning center for their families, for their communities. Very few have set up on this quest of how do we make this accessible to anyone, so that independently, and also many of these learning centers, there's a degree of privilege that out of having resources, I can create it, and there's maybe my partner that can sustain me and so on. But you're creating them in quite in a lot of areas with very low resources, in places that are not considered by most people hubs of innovation, but actually the places in the world that have inspired us the most. So I would like to hear how you envision this approach to systems change. How do you engage governments? How do you reach agreements for scaling up?
Yeah, I'll try to tackle that with what I know. So I think the basic premise of whatever we do so far has definitely been on like going, implementing, seeing what we're able to achieve, and then take that to to communicate that to a larger audience and see who is interested in doing what we're doing. So I think the story for the major story for us in this line of systems change is definitely in the state of Meghalaya. So India is made up of a lot of states. Just by the way, we're very different from each other, very different contexts. It's like working in very different countries almost. But so for a team that is based in Bangalore, Meghalaya actually poses a very different kind of landscape, both geographically but also socioeconomically, culturally, and so one might even wonder, is it possible to just take a model like this and just transplant it and see the same kind of success that we saw in a completely different context. But I think luckily for us, it worked out, because we did not start quite big, to be very honest. I think there was a lot of thankfully, I mean, we got to work with partners on the ground who were as interested in the concept as we were, who recognized the same challenges in the education system and in the lives of people that seem to sort of pose challenges to their growth, not just in the sort of economic sense of the word, since we're talking about how development sector organizations work and view change usually. And so I think having that kind of a partnership to begin with, where more or less our values are quite aligned and a vision for a better society is quite similar, helped us to establish that sort of base. So we started off, I think, very small in the state of Meghalaya. We were given the space to run 2 centers. Very much in the spirit of like an experiment almost. Again, started off by being very slow, perhaps, trying to get a sense of what the community is responding to, who is it that accesses the space, and build on it, and also put equal emphasis on capturing that change in the form of real evidence and things that can then be used to in kind of advocacy as it's understood. And so we started off in 2 spaces in Meghalaya, in rural Meghalaya. Meghalaya is just, by the way, a very hilly sort of state, very challenging to get to. The population is very sparse, so challenging just to sort of access different spots there. And what we understood is from studies that were done on just the 2 centers, that the reception was quite heartening, in the sense that people responded to it very well, and not just in the way that they saw some value in the space and they contributed directly to the space, but they were able to take something from it. And I think in terms that maybe a sort of a mainstream audience would understand it, a lot of them found that they were able to discover maybe a livelihood option that they never thought that they had, or they a learning stream that they never could have explored or experienced otherwise. And so they saw real value in the center, and we were able to sort of capture that with with partnerships and collaborations with organizations and individuals who have the expertise to understand these changes. So that was very important for us, and then that became kind of the bedrock for us to take this to the government, and for the government to also realize that this is potentially something that can address a very, very severe challenge in the state there. And so Meghalaya, just by the way, I think to give a little bit of context to how it looks. So we ended up becoming part of what is now known as the Chief Minister's Youth Center. So there are about 22 such centers across rural Meghalaya. And we are on our way to, I think, expand into more, because again, we were able to, I think the government was able to see potential in what we were able to achieve there. And so, so I think a constant sort of having people who believe in the values that you do, and to have honest conversations, something that I think has been a common sort of undercurrent of all that we've been talking about, like there's an authentic sort of realization that this is an issue, and we need more options. It's not possible that there's only one way of doing things, and we need to be able to create solutions that actually address the problem in the myriads of ways that they present to us. So I think that's how we've been able to achieve this status right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. No, congratulations on that, because it just sounds amazing. I'm super excited.
Yeah, and
Yes.
some people are actually asking questions now that they're hearing you about how you measure impact, and I think that impact measurement, we were talking about it before the call, how there's kind of an emotional element of wanting to create new possibilities in the world, and that it needs to be combined with these rational measures to justify it for founders, for authorities, for communities sometimes. So could you share a little bit about how you, because this, by anyone that is listening, all the Nooks, all the learning centers run by Project DEFY are free of cost. They are free self-directed learning centers. I don't know if I know many more examples of this happening. So if you can share how you make this possible, how you communicate to founders the benefits, how measure that impact.
Sure. So I think from what everyone's described, we kind of get a sense of the fact that what the major activity that a learner gets to do at a Nook is mainly through project-based learning, what is understood as project-based learning. So they pick up a topic that really interests them, or they're trying to solve a problem that really interests them. And through that, what happens is we are able to provide an experience, or the learner is able to go through an experience in which they pick up multiple skills. So ideally speaking, we should be creating a framework which can capture these different, things, experiences and skills that a person is able to, even if, get a sense of during their experience. So for us, I think if I were to break it down in kind of measurable sense, I think there are a couple of themes where absolutely almost, I would say, adamant on measuring. One is that we want to understand the learning experience before we get into things like, what is the hard skill or soft skill that they've captured. So one common sort of a couple of common themes that we've been trying to track now for the past 2 years or so at least are things like, what is the experience in the space like? So what is the relationship they are able to build with the space, and can we then characterize their experience as having a safe learning environment around them, where they're able to build sort of comfortable relationships with each other, with the facilitator, who's actually one of perhaps the linchpin of the entire sort of space running. Like once Nishant leaves Pune, the people who are running the space and providing the support to the learners are the two facilitators that you'll find at every Nook. So it starts with understanding how they're experiencing the space, then goes to understanding if they are able to build a sense of confidence. And that, again, so these are obviously very, how do you call it, slightly abstract sort of terms, like how do you measure confidence? And I think the way we've understood that, at least so far in our experience, is to be able to ask them in the beginning of the project, what makes them confident right now, and at the end of the project, trying to ask them, do they feel confident enough in the project, as in they think they can actually share this knowledge that they have acquired with others. So we see that as a measure of confidence, for example. So I think a lot of I have to say though, I think whatever is available in the larger literature around like social emotional learning and soft skills and life skills does give us a little insight into how we can look at these things. Of course, they are also coming from a slightly sort of school perspective and classroom instruction and things like that. So I think that is something that we have to learn to adapt, plus look at new ways in which we want to measure it in the context of just pure learning experience. So so I think this is how we try to look at impact right now, and then there's a lot of like operational aspects of it, like how long does it take to do a goal cycle, as we call it. How many people were in teams. We also try to see whether they are mixing genders, is there like different age groups working together. And I think these are sort of important, these are aspirational sort of things to look for, but definitely things that we're very, very interested in. So hope that answers.
This impact stuff is the measurement and evaluation of things is a very tricky thing, and we have to be a little bit careful, because I think one of the reasons why schools suck that much is because of exams. Like anybody will tell you, it's just horrible. That makes the whole experience, the entire purpose changes to just scoring in exams. And like if you think about it, for example, if we take eating, or nutrition, it would probably be more measurable if everybody took nutritional supplement pills, as opposed to eat nice organic food that grows in their background. It would probably be a lot more measurable, but that does not mean it's a better solution, right? And this is like, we are very conscious all the time that our assessment of things and our curiosity, or our donors curiosity, and this idea of proving to the world that something works and so on, should not come in the way of the experience of learning, should not become about achieving that metric, and should not be this idea that let's just create the best numbers. It's actually been one of the reasons why it is really difficult for us to work as a non-profit. But who are we trying to satisfy at the end of the day is the ultimate question. The end of the day, we feel if people are coming to the space and nobody ever forced them to, it's not like the Nook is inside a school and we're making a deal with the school that they have to send 20 kids. Every person who walks in comes because they want to, and they can stop anytime they want. They don't pay anything. There is no contracts that they sign that make them bound to this space. And if anything, they receive only discouragement from others who are following the mainstream models. So if they're coming, they have, at least they believe that there's a good reason to be there. And I think as a society of people, we have to start trusting them and their belief of what they think is right. We were recently at a Nook, and I was visiting, and it's a new crowd, new set of learners who were coming in, and they're like, so are you here to teach us? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I'm in a good place. I mean, what am I going to teach you? How to destroy the city? How to, destroy the air we breathe? How to take more and more money so that others have lesser and lesser? How to spend no time with my family? Like, what am I going to teach you coming from, urban Bangalore? Uh, I'm only here to learn, because I think you have what people need to learn from, not the other way around. We're not creating Nooks. This you know Nooks are in marginalized communities, but not because they need the Nook so desperately and others don't. It's the other way around. It's because they are their voice is something that everybody else should be learning from. If they can spend time at the Nook, and if they can have their voice, and if they can show the rest of the world how you can live in a regenerative way, then maybe we have a chance, not the other way around. This is, I think, extremely important. And what became very clear to me the last 10 years is, sometimes being a non-profit and actually solving a problem are not the same thing. You have to go much beyond the boundaries of running an organization, of surviving as an organization, of running projects and programs. You have to go much further than that. You have to dissolve all of these boundaries, and maybe create a movement. Only then some kind of a change is possible.
Thank you very much for sharing, and it's so inspiring to look at so-called marginalized communities as gems from where new models of how to live sustainably and equitably can emerge, because they haven't been engulfed yet in the fear mindset that we have been talking about, and that we ourselves have been found ourselves into. Wow. I'm just so thankful to all of you for the work you do, for the time you have shared with us today, for hosting us in Bangalore when we were there, for inspiring us through all this journey. Truly, I mean, this for me, this journey in education started more or less at the time that I met you, Abhijit. And Luz was this crazy woman that had these crazy ideas, and I was just going along the way because I was interested in social change. But education was a very clear thing that was positive always. Everyone needed to go to school, and there was a way to do things. And all these conversations and openness to share, to challenge from a place of care as well, it really opened up my mind to the possibilities. And we are still on this somehow 5 years after, and much committed to it. And I know one of the key things was that I want to keep being surrounded by people like you. It's something I keep telling to people, like, why I work on what I do, because I want to be surrounded by people like this. I want to keep listening these amazing stories and believing through this that yes, another world is possible, and not just possible, it's already happening in all of these different communities and spaces, and I'm part of it, and I'm connected with these amazing and inspiring human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for sharing with us today.
And the inspiration keep going. Like, I know, like, it has passed 6 years. I still remember the interviews, and like all like those words got tattooed on me, on myself. So I have been trying to live by those things, and that, like, all the learnings and the experiences you share, we carry them with us, and we try to spread them more. So thank you very much for all the work you do, which is amazing, and I feel the energy and the excitement. I'm looking forward to see you again in person, and to meet also the other ones. Yeah, that could be amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good rest today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace out, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.